Hello, hello! It's Business Partner, Unit 6, Entrepreneurs, Lesson 6.5, Writing, Summarizing. This lesson is wonderful. This lesson is for you who has to present facts and figures, who has to present other people's uh, ideas to a group of people. This lesson is for you who has to attend meetings and write reports about the meeting. Imagine that you go to a training, to some training, and then on the way back you have to summarize what you had in order to tell your partners, your colleagues, your boss, what you did, what training you had, to show that it was worthwhile going there. Very nice content here. And it's a motivational content. Why do I say that? Because it tells the story of a person who was successful in and as an entrepreneur. And it's wonderful to learn about people that are successful because we can get inspired and get some ideas on how to be successful too. So let's go to the video. But before that, if you know the channel, why don't you like the video? If you don't, and yes, that's a good idea. You like the video, and if you don't like it, you just remove the like. But please watch until the end and subscribe to the channel because it's very good content. So let's go. I'd like to start by telling you, by asking you, what kind of communications do you have to summarize in your language and in English? Do you have to? Because I do that frequently. I attend trainings all the time, and I take my notebook and I write summaries in English. You know that my first language is Portuguese. Look who's here. Hello, Cora. Look at her tail here. Can you see? She loves to sit here on my lap and stay here when it's cold. Too cold. But it's better with her. And well, the point is that I summarize all the time. It happened since I was starting to learn English. I like it very much. By the way, very good for you as a practice of producing English if you write while learning. Very good practice. Try that. But let's go and summarize our content. Look, learners can write a simple summary of factual work-related information. I asked you what you, in your personal life or in your professional life, you summarize. And what do you find most difficult about writing summaries? What is it in your language and in English? What is hard for you? When I was learning English, what was hard for me was vocabulary. Many words wouldn't come while I was taking notes of speeches, talks. So what did I do? I would write those words in Portuguese, and then after the speech, I would revise because that was very good for me because I would learn more, memorize more about the content itself of the speech. But then I would look up in the dictionary those words that I couldn't write in English. And I learned lots of words. My vocabulary increased very fast because of that. Try doing that. I hope you will learn many words by doing that. So, let's go to the first exercise. What is it about? It's a talk by a successful entrepreneur. We are going to listen to the first part of it. What is the main purpose of this part of his talk? And you have to tell me, is it to give his audience advice? Is it to explain the background of his business? Or is it to convince his audience to invest in a new project? Don't you agree that there are talks that try to give audience advice? Yes, some others. He's a successful entrepreneur, so he can give us good advice. Some others give the story of the company, how he started, and his path to success. And some others try to convince his audience or their audience to invest in a new project. Okay, all of them are okay. But let's see what is the case here. Let me open and let's listen to it.
Unit 6, Recording 4.
Good evening, everyone. I'm George Johnson, and I started my business, G.J. Wood Toys, while I was still working at my full-time job at an estate agent's, selling houses. Although I quite liked my job, ever since my kids were born, I'd been making wooden toys for them as a hobby. But then other parents saw the toys and wanted to buy them, and kept telling me that I should set up my own business. I started by selling the toys at craft fairs, and they sold out every time. My target market was enormous, parents and their children, because kids are usually the ones to persuade the parents to part with their money. Parents like something that is well-made, durable, reliable and, above all, safe. And the bright colours and versatility of each piece appeals to the children. It looked like we were onto a winner. I continued making the toys in my garage for a while, but then when a couple of local stores approached me, I realised that I needed funding to expand my production and move into slightly larger premises. In order to do this, and invest in more tools and employ more people, I had to use family savings and remortgage my house, which was a big risk because I could have lost all their money. However, it wasn't long after this that a big department store became interested in the toys after one of their directors had bought some at a craft fair. Well, they started talking about placing an order for 50,000 units. It was at this point that I realised I had a potentially very successful product on my hands. However, this next step would require a huge investment, and I just didn't have the money. With the promise of the order from the store, I tried pitching to various potential backers to find the funding. The bank wasn't interested, so I started looking at the possibility of crowdfunding, although I eventually decided against this. I also talked to business angels. I was very lucky to meet a business angel who'd been looking for a startup to invest in, and he brought not only the investment needed, but a wealth of experience too.
I really love listening to experiences. Really like. Well, what do you think? What is the main purpose of this part of his talk, that is the beginning? To give his audience advice, explain the background, his business, convince his audience to invest in a new project? What's your option? It's option, right? Option B. Very good. Now the next part is also very interesting. Why? Because we are going to listen again, but now we are going to complete. Use 1 to 3 words in each gap. Is the talk. Very nice. George Johnson, founder of G.J. Wood Toys. How he be? Okay, you can talk to me and say, "Oh, come. You should have checked that earlier." But yes, no, I didn't. Seems that isn't a real person. Literary result. Invented, but the idea is very nice. Would you like to create a company like that? I can tell you that my father would make, he used to have company and about, well, he used to have a company, an engineering company, projected many places, many buildings and so on, his company. But he loved working with wood, makes excellent boxes, and he made of wood. He make 3 whole sets of chess pieces, very beautiful ones, by the way. And he made 1 or 2 made of metal, very beautiful. So you see, it was his pleasure doing that. And George Johnson here, fictional, or I believe a fictional character, he is he's telling his story. Let's listen again and let's complete.
Unit 6, Recording 4.
Good evening, everyone. I'm George Johnson, and I started my business, G.J. Wood Toys, while I was still working at my full-time job at an estate agent's, selling houses.
Oops. Well, maybe I didn't tell you, but this is not the listening. It isn't the audio script, but this is the summary of his talk. And he has already given answer 1. Listen again to this part.
While I was still working at my full-time job at an estate agent's, selling houses.
Look, he mentions that he was working as a estate agent. Okay?
Although I quite liked my job, ever since my kids were born, I'd been making wooden toys for them as a hobby.
He started making them wooden toys, right?
But then other parents saw the toys and wanted to buy them, and kept telling me that I should set up my own business. I started by selling the toys at craft fairs, and they sold out every time.
He started selling them at where they always sold out. He could sell all of the toys at craft fairs, craft things that are handmade, right? Usually, and you sold out. I can't pause and as I'm doing now because of the bar, but I'm going to play and we can complete in the end, right?
My target market was enormous, parents and their children, because kids are usually the ones to persuade the parents to part with their money. Parents like something that is well made, durable, reliable and above all safe. And the bright colours and versatility of each piece appeals to the children. It looked like we were onto a winner. I continued making the toys in my garage for a while, but then when a couple of local stores approached me, I realised that I needed funding to expand my production and move into slightly larger premises. In order to do this, and invest in more tools and employ more people, I had to use family savings and remortgage my house, which was a big risk because I could have lost all their money. However, it wasn't long after this that a big department store became interested in the toys after one of their directors had bought some at a craft fair. Well, they started talking about placing an order for 50,000 units. It was at this point that I realised I had a potentially very successful product on my hands. However, this next step would require a huge investment, and I just didn't have the money. With the promise of the order from the store, I tried pitching to various potential backers to find the funding. The bank wasn't interested, so I started looking at the possibility of crowdfunding, although I eventually decided against this. I also talked to business angels. I was very lucky to meet a business angel who'd been looking for a startup to invest in, and he brought not only the investment needed, but a wealth of experience too.
Right? Easy. Yes, his was huge. Parents and children who loved the toys. What is that? His target market. Originally, he made them in his garage, but when two local stores became interested, he realized he had to expand even further and find larger what? Premises. I love these words. Don't see that all the time, do we? Larger premises, so bigger space. The initial funding came from family savings. Ooh, imagine if he loses everything. Family savings and remortgage. But soon a big department store expressed interest in placing an order, because an order, you order pizza, they deliver you a pizza, but the action of making the order is to place. So, in placing an order, as a result, he realized he had a potentially very successful business. But in order to fulfill the order, he would need huge investment. Imagine 50,000 units, only the wood for that. With the department store order, he started various backers. Backers, people that would support or give money for that. So he had to sell the idea. What's the word for selling that we learned in this unit? Pitch, right? So he started, you use ing, the other verb, you start running, you start learning, and he started pitching. He started pitching to various backers, banks, crowdfunding schemes, and he mentions some strategic people that are called business angels. Finally, he was fortunate enough to find one who brought both the money and experience to be. very good, very, very good summary. And this is what we are doing in this lesson, learning how to make summaries, how to create the full pieces of work. Well, we write less words, we don't use the same words, things are usually a little different, okay? But what are we going to do now in part C? We are going to listen again and read the audio script on page 149 and check the answers. Okay, we have already checked it, but now we are going to confront what we are listening to and what we are reading. Okay, that's wonderful practice, by the way. If you have access to books, where books or other sources in which you have the listening and the writing, you learn a lot of words if you have trouble with pronunciation in English and so on. So let me show you the page here, not this page, sorry, this page, okay? I believe this, you have access to the page, but probably I have to show you these. Oops. I always do that, right? Sorry for that. Okay. Sorry for that. Let me go and see if I can do this here. Yes, I can. That's wonderful. So listen while we have, oh no, this is the exercise 1B. Yes, no. The idea of C, okay. Let's listen again.
Unit 6, Recording 4.
Good evening, everyone. I'm George Johnson, and I started my business, G.J. Wood Toys, while I was still working at my full-time job at an estate agent's, selling houses. Although I quite liked my job, ever since my kids were born, I'd been making wooden toys for them as a hobby. But then other parents saw the toys and wanted to buy them, and kept telling me that I should set up my own business. I started by selling the toys at craft fairs, and they sold out every time. My target market was enormous, parents and their children, because kids are usually the ones to persuade the parents to part with their money. Parents like something that is well-made, durable, reliable and, above all, safe. And the bright colours and versatility of each piece appeals to the children. It looked like we were onto a winner. I continued making the toys in my garage for a while, but then when a couple of local stores approached me, I realised that I needed funding to expand my production and move into slightly larger premises. In order to do this, and invest in more tools and employ more people, I had to use family savings and remortgage my house, which was a big risk because I could have lost all their money. However, it wasn't long after this that a big department store became interested in the toys after one of their directors had bought some at a craft fair. Well, they started talking about placing an order for 50,000 units. It was at this point that I realised I had a potentially very successful product on my hands. However, this next step would require a huge investment, and I just didn't have the money. With the promise of the order from the store, I tried pitching to various potential backers to find the funding. The bank wasn't interested, so I started looking at the possibility of crowdfunding, although I eventually decided against this. I also talked to business angels. I was very lucky to meet a business angel who'd been looking for a startup to invest in, and he brought not only the investment needed, but a wealth of experience too.
Yes? So, we already had the answers. So, following the script, very interesting. Learn a lot. A wealth of reach of very good. Very. All right. Let's go back. I'm not playing with the summary because I'd already given you the answer. Take a print. Right. But more than that, we saw a wonderful example of summary. What do you have to do now? Match the tips with the underlined examples in the summary in exercise 1. Here we have these words here. Mentions that, however, huge, soon, as a result, finally, both the money and experience, right? We have these words. I missed one, I don't think so, but might have happened. Which match the tips, these tips, the underlined examples in the summary in exercise 1. Some tips have more than one example. All right, very interesting. What's the idea here? Identify main topic and purpose. See, right? We have to find here. Okay, by the way, yes, I did. George Johnson, founder of, explains how he began his. By the way, that's number 1, right? Main topic and purpose. The title, yes, the title brings that. Use synonyms where possible. Let me give you an example. For example, what's the synonym for very small? One synonym is tiny. Do you remember the Tiny Toons? And something that is significant. It's something important, right? So we have to find, we have to use synonyms where possible. The idea here is we had a word in the original talk and we have here a synonym. Do you remember an example? It mentions that huge as a result. So that's it. Should bring that. And the synonym here is huge because in his speech he uses the word enormous and isn't enormous here. We have huge, the summary. And he also uses here in the summary, but soon a big department store expressed interest. And in the talk, he says, it wasn't long after this that a big department store expressed it. So soon instead of not long after. Right? Okay. Paraphrase. What's that? Paraphrase is to bring another sentence that has the same idea from the original. For example, if I say they turned down his application, I can say his application was rejected, right? The bank didn't like the idea. Bank wasn't interested in the idea. Do you or can you identify an example here? Probably a longer one. It wouldn't be finally, it wouldn't be as a result, but it could be here to find one who brought both the money and experience. Do you remember what he said in the speech? The speech, he says, he talks about someone who brought not only the investment needed, but a wealth experience too. Here, the person brought the money and experience. Very good. Imagine having someone to help you with experience and money. After that, we have 4. Use linking words to join sentences. We have many words, many linking words, right? And for example, but, although, in addition, for instance, because of, right? So, do we have it here? Yes, we have 3 examples. However, we have as a result, have, and we finally have, finally. Good. And do you remember that lesson about using reporting speech? We have it here. He mentioned it. He mentions that he was working as an estate. Mentions that reporting verb. Wonderful, guys, because we are being shown some techniques how to write very good summary. We learn these techniques, we produce very good. All right, let's see extra activity. I liked it because we are going to work a little more on this. Read what Jake Evans says about his job. Then look at the summary and match the examples in bold with the tips. 5. Those tips, right? Those tips that we saw. Main topic and purpose, synonyms, paraphrase, linking words, and reporting verbs. We have these in bold, right? A, B, C, D. So let's see. Let's read together. I started work as a waiter in the local coffee shop. I didn't really like it. One day, while I was working, I got an idea for some office furniture. I decided to leave my job that very same day, and I've never looked back. I showed my designs to someone who worked in a big bank in the city, and they wanted to buy my furniture. As a result, after that, I got lots of orders from other big companies. I have never advertised my furniture because customers recommended it to other people, and I've always got loads of it. In fact, you probably know, I'm now building a new factory and have employed several staff to help. Let's now compare these with the summary. Take a look and see how smaller. Too much, but it is smaller than the original. Jake Evans describes how he was working as a waiter when the idea for his company came to him. What is describe? Let's see. I started work. I didn't know. One day, I got an idea. It described. A. Reporting verb. right? Why do I say that? Because he describes something, how he was working. It's a reporting verb. It's used to say what he said, right? I could have said, Jake Evans says how Jake Evans mentions how he was working, right? Another reporting. The main topic or purpose. Easy, right? How he was working as a waiter when the idea came for his company, right? So B1, main purpose of his description here. All right, he immediately left his job and started designing office furniture. Immediately goes with this. Left his job that very same day. All right? So, what's that? Is that a synonym or is that a paraphrase? It's only one word, so it's a synonym, right? Okay? And let's continue. His first order was from a big city bank, and soon the orders came flooding in. Wow, imagine if something is flooding in, you have many orders, right? Very good expression. Let's read the original. I showed my designs to someone who worked in a big bank in the city and they wanted to buy my furniture. As a result, after that, I got lots of orders from other big companies. This is also very good to learn English if you compare different versions, because the idea is the same, but written with different words. So you learn new words in context without looking at a diction. That's positive, very positive. So the first one is D. His first order was from a big bank. And what's that? A paraphrase, right? Because he mentions the same idea in a slightly different way in the original. After that, we have E. Soon the orders came flooding in. Soon. The linking word, right? Is it? Soon. No. I have never. As a result. Okay, that's it, right? Soon. Yes. E. As a result or soon, they're synonym. Yes. The orders came flooding in. That's a continue. He claims that he has never advertised his traditional way. What is that? He claims, he says, he mentions it's a reporting verb. Claims that but his order book remains full. His order book. I've always got loads of good, so it's a paraphrase. H, right? Consequently, the company is expanding. Consequently is a link. I, J, the company is expanding. I'm now building a new factory. So it's very good. Oops. Would you like to go there and see again? Sorry. I'd like to take a print. Yes? Okay. All right, so let's see now. Order of information in sentence. Very good, because we have a logical order for words in English. We usually begin a sentence with the topic word or known information. This is followed by new information and ideas about the topic. For example, George Johnson started making toys for his children. George Johnson is the topic word or known information, so it comes at the beginning of the sentence. George Johnson started making toys for his children. Making toys for his children is the new information and therefore comes at the end of the sentence. Some common changes. Often, other words in a sentence may change. These include: these toys were very popular, or the parent. Toys refers back to the toys made by George Johnson. These specific toys are now the topic of this sentence and known information. They wanted to buy the toys. They refers back to other parents. This was the new information in the previous sentence and is now the topic of this sentence. And by the way, we usually avoid repetition. So instead of parents, they, and so on, right? It gets more comfortable for reading. Using a noun form instead of a verb form. Managing finances carefully from the staff is fundamental. The topic of this sentence is managing finances, so we need it at the beginning of this is very important to use the right topic words and to write in the correct. Okay, nice. And finally, the last part of the lesson is about doing the same. But now we are going to read a summary of the final part of the talk. Discuss ways in which you could improve it, shorten the tips in exercise 2 to. And then, well, we are going to listen to the final part of the talk and read the audio. Right? Own summary in around 250. So this is a second part. Oh, this is the summary of the final part of the talk. Let's go and see. Business advice for entrepreneurs. George Johnson gives entrepreneurs advice about setting up a business and says it's different for everyone. First point, that they must believe passionately in their product or service and love it, or they won't be able to sell. So that the first thing you should do is conduct extensive market research and listen to feedback. He also says that good planning is vital, especially time management, and that this plan should act as a map for the business. The best piece of advice someone gave him was to be open to advice, but to remember that not all advice is helpful and should ignore any advice that doesn't feel right. However, entrepreneurs should be ready to ask for advice when they need it. Another important thing, manage their finances carefully so that they know exactly what their money is doing. This becomes even more important as the the company and the amounts of money get. Since he has worked with tailors, George knows that it's very important for entrepreneurs to value their product and not to sell it to retailers at prices which are too low. They need to know exactly what is the best unit price for themselves and keep to it. But without customers, company is nothing. So developing customer relations is very important because without customers, a business will fail. Another thing which is important to remember is that it can be frightening when an entrepreneur suddenly discovers that he is leader and is managing. His advice to learn to trust key people and to delegate properly. This is hard for someone who has been responsible for everything. Finally, it's important to know how hard it is to succeed and that they will probably work harder than they have ever worked. Very interesting. But although it's fictional, very good advice, very good ideas for us to grow as entrepreneurs, as workers in the company. Very good advice for me as a teacher to work on my business, because I have the business of finding students, recording videos, telling you what the book brings. I hope I'm doing it in a way that you like. Okay. Well, George Johnson gives entrepreneurs advice about setting up a business and says it is different for everyone. Can we make it smaller? Why not by saying George Johnson advises new entrepreneurs passionately believe in their product or service, because without that belief, it will not sell. Well, comes unto here. Okay, your exercise, your task to shorten summary. You do that? Well, why don't you try and you show your, because you probably study with this book and you are watching this in preparation for your lesson or as a review. My suggestion is for you to do this, a short summary, a shorter, by using those ideas from X. Okay? After that, what are we going to do? We are going to listen. Well, we can remember, right? Identify the main purpose, use synonyms where possible, paraphrase, linking words, especially if you can use other words, and use reporting verbs. You do that? Yes. So that's A. Part B, we are going to listen to the final part of the talk. Audio. Oh, can I do that? Yes, while listening. And then you are going to write your own summary. We have an example here. You should shorten it, but you can write your own. Okay, let me play. Very interesting information.
Unit 6, Recording 5.
So, I know you're interested to hear any advice I can give you about setting up your own business. I think it's different for everyone, but there are some common points you need to focus on. Firstly, in the early days, it's very important to believe passionately in your product or service. If you don't believe in it, you won't be able to sell it. You have to love what you do. Once you know that you love the product, conduct as extensive market research as you can and listen to people's feedback. It's no good trying to take a product or service to market if nobody's going to be interested. Thirdly, I think that good planning is key, especially time management, but also planning every step of the journey. A good plan acts as a map for your business. And if something fails, you can go back to the drawing board and redraw that map. The best piece of advice someone gave me at the beginning was to be open to advice. But remember that not all advice will be helpful, so if it doesn't feel right for you, ignore it. And don't be afraid to ask for advice or help when you need it. Remember, you're not an expert in everything. Another vital thing is to manage your finances carefully and make sure you know how your money's being used, how much you're spending and earning at all times. As you get bigger and the amounts of money involved get larger, and the money is no longer just yours, this becomes even more important. So, start off as you mean to go on. Oh, and talking about money, if you end up working with large retailers like me, don't let them beat you down on unit prices, as they'll always try to push the price down as far as they can. When you know what price works for you, stick to it. If the retailers want to sell your product, you know it must be good, so don't give it away. With everything else that's going on, don't forget your customer. The customer is the source of your inspiration and rewards, so developing close customer relations is absolutely vital. As soon as you start forgetting the customer, your business is likely to begin to fail. Oh, furthermore, the frightening thing is that suddenly you become a leader, and managing a company and its personnel is not easy. So, my advice to you here is to learn to trust your key people and delegate work appropriately. When you've been the only one responsible for everything for so long, I think this is the hardest thing to do, handing it over to others. And finally, above all, never underestimate how hard it is to succeed. You'll probably find yourself working harder than you've ever worked in your life.
Go to page 149, probably have the book. This is page 109, the second. You can use this to create your own summary, but you should work 200 really. But okay, I'm very nice today, so I'm going to give you an example answer. Right? You can take a print, and it's much smaller than the other one we had. Very good one. This is it. Okay. And what we have, part C, you should exchange your summaries with your colleagues. And you follow the tips. Did your colleague follow the tips? That's the idea of the last part. I hope you liked the video. You had help with summaries, and most The most interesting thing for me is the advice we have here. Okay, it's fictional, but the ideas behind this story are true. You have to listen to advice, won't be good in everything, so find people you can trust and believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. You are growing as an entrepreneur or as a worker in a company. You are starting your career. You are ending your studies at university. So believe in yourself. Continue growing, continue learning, keep learning English, keep learning about your area, and you will be successful. I hope I've helped you with this video. If you liked, why don't you subscribe to the channel and like the video? And if you really liked, you saw me with this cup, isn't coffee inside. But you could buy me a cup of coffee, and I really want you to watch other videos from mine. So I'll be recording other videos. Now we are finishing Unit 6 and we will have Unit 7. That will be great as well. So I see you or you see me in the next video. Bye bye.